Hi guys, Julia here from JM Squared Vintage. Welcome back to the channel. I am here today with something a little bit different. This is one of my most requested videos from you guys. So today we are going to be talking about a bunch of different trends and aesthetics and styles that should help you while you are outsourcing. I'm going to give you tips on like what to look for, how to keyword them in your listings to get the right eyeballs on them. And I'm also going to give you a few areas for inspiration, style icons that you can look at that really embody the style, movies that are in that style, sometimes even an outlet where you can go to and like learn more about that style. So hopefully this helps you guys out. This is something that is a little bit of a hobby for me. So this has been really fun to like organize all my thoughts on this. But before we get started here, guys, if this is your first time here, if this is your first time stumbling on my channel, first and foremost, welcome. I am Julia. That is my name. We talk all things thrifting and vintage and the business of reselling on the internet here. If that sounds like something that you might be into, consider hitting subscribe down below. I would love to have you along on this journey. But with that being said, guys, we've got a lot of stuff to get through. I cannot wait to start talking trends. So go grab yourself a notebook and a pen, grab yourself a little snack, grab yourself something to drink. You know I've got my matcha latte. So sit back, relax, and let's get into the trends. So the first thing we're going to talk about here is the old money aesthetic. This is also known as quiet luxury. This is very, very timeless. So if you think about old money versus nouveau riche, right? You think about nouveau riche and you think flashy and logos and bling and like screaming how much money they have. The old phrase is money talks, wealth whispers, and this stands very, very true in this category. So when you are outsourcing, you want to look for very classic tailoring, classic neutral colors. Think camel, black, navy blue, white, cream, all those kind of colors. They're just forever in style. There's never going to be a time where good tailoring and quality construction is out of style. A great long camel wrap coat is going to be in style pretty much forever. You're going to be looking for these classic tailored pieces, high quality construction, high quality fabrics, think cashmere sweaters, very, very, very classic, very traditional. This is going to be your old money aesthetic. Now, when you're listing these pieces, obviously, first and foremost, and this is going to go for every single style that we talk about, the most important thing that you can put into your listings for keywords are descriptive keywords, right? So say you find this beautiful black cashmere sweater, which is very, very simple, a classic black cashmere sweater. You want to make sure you say cashmere. You want to talk about the fit. Is it slim fit, relaxed fit, oversized? Crew neck, long sleeve, ribbed collar, ribbed cuff. Is it a raglan sleeve cut? Use those kind of descriptors because that is something that people search for when they're searching for these kind of things. It's what helps them like whittle down what they purchase. Now, in terms of like style keywords, you want to use things like neutral, classic, timeless, closet staple, capsule wardrobe, tailored, luxury, rich girl. These are all keywords that are going to get those eyeballs to you. You can even use like clean girl because this is in that style, this clean girl aesthetic. You'll see lots of places throughout this list where these styles really overlap with each other. They each have something individual about them that makes them special, but you want to make sure that you are getting every eyeball possible to your listings. So I'll make sure to note where you're using these other aesthetics as keywords in whatever you're finding. So in terms of finding a little bit of like inspiration for an old money aesthetic, obviously, everybody's been talking about Sofia Richie. She just got married and I forget what her new last name is, so I apologize for that. But Sofia Richie really embodies that quiet luxury aesthetic. You want to look at like Princess Diana. She was like the original queen of quiet luxury. She's very low key, but everything she had was like very well made, but still very laid back, very relaxed. So, and for Princess Diana, if you have anything that you are listing that looks like something that Princess Diana wore at any point, you want to make sure to use Princess Diana as a keyword because absolutely positively people search for like Princess Diana sweatshirt, Princess Diana sweater, Princess Diana dress, especially if you have a revenge dress. Just that's not part of this aesthetic, but like just a pro tip. You also want to check out the show Succession. Succession is kind of credited for bringing this style to the forefront. Obviously, Succession is about a family that is so wealthy. They're at that level of wealth. So they wear lots of like Loro Piana, Brunello Cucinelli, all these extremely high-end brands that make classic pieces with impeccable tailoring and top-of-the-line fabrication with absolutely no logos. So if you want a little inspiration, check out Succession. Also, it's a really good show. You should check it out anyway. The next style that we are going to tackle is minimalist. Now, minimalist and quiet luxury are going to have some crossovers. You want to make sure you're using minimalist in quiet luxury pieces because minimalism is both a style and like a lifestyle. There are people who dress minimalist that are like, I just want to have, 20 pieces in my closet and that's all I ever want to have. And they do the capsule wardrobe thing. That's very much a minimalist lifestyle. There's also like an actual fashion style called minimalism. And this is very much like driven by lots of monochromatics, lots of clean lines, but also like when you're dealing with monochromatics in like a true minimalist fashion, you oftentimes have really like unusual plays on like volume or like treatment of fabrics. Think about like Issey Miyake and what he was doing with pleats and just taking something that's like very classic and putting a really modern spin on it. So you have those two parts of minimalism, but at the end of the day, minimalism, whether it is in terms of how they live and how they curate their closet or the literal style of modern minimalism, the same theories apply in terms of how you keyword. So with minimalism, you're obviously looking for a lot of the same things that you're looking for in the old money aesthetic. Lots of monochromatics, neutral colors, blacks, whites, creams, camels, navy blues. You're looking for classic or traditional cuts. Again, minimalism is all about, if you're looking at somebody who is doing like a minimalist closet, this is all about having a few pieces in your closet that all work together. So you can just grab a pair of pants, grab a top, grab a topper piece, and it's done. Doesn't matter which three pieces you grab, they all go together. So that's a minimalist mindset in terms of people who run their closet like that. When you're looking for more like modern minimalism, again, you're looking for excellent tailoring, monochromatics, same color palette, black, white, camel, navy blue, and you're looking for slightly more unusual cuts or plays with volume, but it all falls into that minimalist aesthetic. So in terms of how to keyword minimalist pieces, you want to be using things like, of course, minimalist, minimal, Scandinavian style very much falls into the same world. Monochromatic, clean lines, architectural. If you have something that has like a play on volume, you want to use the term architectural. I will say that architectural is a very, very powerful keyword. Anytime I've ever had anything listed with architectural, it sells pretty quickly. You also want to use like Scandi. So if you have something that's like Scandinavian, which is a long word, you always want to make sure you're using like every version of that word. So think like minimalist, you also want to use minimal. If you're using Scandinavian, you also want to use Scandi. If you're using boho, you also want to use bohemian. So I'm not saying to overstuff your listings, but just make sure that you are kind of capturing all of the things that really are pertinent to your particular item. If you want to check out some celebrities that have a really great dialed, refined, minimalist aesthetic, of course, look no further than the Olsen twins. They are the founders of The Row, which is pretty much the most sought after minimalist brand today. Kate Blanchett has a great minimalist style. I think Tilda Swinton, she is another one of like the goddesses of minimalist style. So lots of places to get inspiration there, but make sure like minimalist is something that is always under the surface. People don't necessarily talk about it. It's been a little bit more popular recently, but it's always there. Like this is a forever style. So keep your eyes out for those pieces. Make sure you're keywording them right. Next up here, we're going to be talking about one of my favorites, log and look. So log and look is a German word that literally translates to layered look. And you have seen it, I'm sure, a million times. This is another one of those things that's not necessarily a trend or an aesthetic. This is more of like a lifestyle. People who dress like this don't really exist in trends. They don't really follow trends. This is something that like you can be comfortable picking up today, 10 years from now. I'm sure you were picking it up 10 years ago. Like this kind of stuff never goes out of style. It's high quality. It's lots of natural fabrics. It's oversized. It looks very layered. So this is like heavy on linen, heavy on big pockets, kind of oversized fits, lots of like unusual silhouettes. In terms of like keywording a log and look piece, obviously you need to have log and look as like your number one keyword. You also want to put in layered look. I like to put in like artsy, art teacher. This is definitely a branch off of boho, bohemian, hippie, natural. You want to use those kind of keywords. I mean, typically, if you want to talk about inspiration for a log and look, like look no farther than your old art teacher. Chances are your old art teacher was a log and look person. I know that every single art teacher I ever had was absolutely wearing like linen, oversized things. It's just kind of their thing. I always use artsy and art to wear. Log and look pieces are not necessarily necessarily art to wear, but tends to be something that is worn by a lot of people that look for those kind of pieces. Again, I'm finding those like tangents that really go together to get the right eyes on your stuff. But another celebrity you can look at that definitely embodies the log and look way of life is Helena Bonham Carter. And she's been dressing this way forever. And if I can guess, she will dress this way for the rest of her life. So log and look is always a bolo for me. It doesn't matter if it's one of the high-end brands or like a no-name, no-tag linen piece from Amazon, as long as I describe it well and use the terms that we discussed before, does not matter what the tag says. Obviously, if you find one of the high-end log and look pieces, grab it because you're going to get good money for it. Some of these pieces will resell $100, $200. But the Amazon pieces with no tags in them, as long as they're like a good fabric and they're a log and look style, they will still sell. And they will still sell $25, $30. So log and look's one of my favorite. Definitely one to keep your eyes out for. And again, one of those styles that is never going to go out of style. So just put that on your permanent find list. Next up, we're going to talk about Coastal Grandmother. Now, this is one of those styles, again, that's going to be around forever. This is elevated, airy colors, classic construction, great tailoring. Now, this is a style that is as much applicable for the older generation as it is for the younger generation. I see a lot of younger girls that are dressing in this way, and it's great because it's a very timeless style. So think, again, like your light colored neutrals. There's not a lot of darks in the Coastal Grandmother. You get some hits of navy, but for the most part, these are like sands and light blues and light greens and whites and creams and very just think airy ethereal colors. Quality construction, great fabrics, timeless style, and you want to use a lot of the keywords that we've already discussed. A lot of these also fit into minimalist. A lot of these also fit into old money aesthetic. So use all these keywords interchangeably. But make sure you're using Coastal Grandmother when you see like a great peach long line cardigan. If you want a little bit of inspiration, look no further than like Diane Keaton, my style icon forever and ever. Think like Diane Lane, Jane Fonda. You can watch movies like Under the Tuscan Sun, Something's Gotta Give. Really, any Nancy Meyers movie ever made is very much a Coastal Grandmother aesthetic. So take that with you when you're outsourcing. If it feels like your rich auntie that has the big beach house would wear it, pick it up, use those keywords. So the next style or trend that we're going to talk about is workwear. Now, workwear is predominantly like a utility driven thing. There are some ties into actual like fashion, which we'll talk about more a little bit later, but for the purposes of this, in terms of workwear, we're talking like your Carhartt, your Dickies. We're talking the things that people who work in construction sites are putting on their body while they go out. These things need to be made so well because they are going to be taking abuse while they are on the job. They're going to have pieces of wood rubbing against them. Like these need to be heavy duty fabrics that can take a lot of abrasion. The insulation has to be great and not too bulky because people are wearing them in outdoor construction sites and they need to be able to move. They can't have a super bulky jacket. In terms of keywords while you're listing these things, you want to get like functional, utility, construction jacket, cold weather gear. If you see like FR on a piece of workwear, that means that it's flame retardant. And I will tell you, if you find something with FR on it, make sure you list that because people seek that out specifically. I think there are certain jobs where you have to wear flame retardant stuff. So if you have anything that does have the FR on it, make sure that that is listed. But the thing is, like, this stuff sells no matter what. Like if you find a Carhartt jacket, I don't care if there's holes in that jacket. If there is still life in that jacket will sell for probably $40 or $50 minimum. The thing about them is, number one, these things are going to be abused, as I mentioned before. They're going to be on work sites where they're going to get stuff on them. They're going to get paint on them. They're going to get, they don't care that it's new. I think the thing that's interesting about workwear, and I think that the reason that it does so well on the resale market, I was just talking to a friend of mine who's a contractor. He's like, brand new like Carhartt jackets are so stiff and they take such a long time to break in that people like to get these jackets pre-broken in. You don't want to have to go through a couple weeks of like a very stiff jacket until it starts to like break into your body. I think that's why they sell so well. I don't think I've ever had a Carhartt jacket that didn't sell within like 2 weeks. So that kind of stuff, keep your eyes out for. I'm going to talk a little bit more about the fashion side of workwear a little bit later, but for this specifically, you want to use workwear. You want to use specifically American workwear. American workwear is a very big thing in Japan, and vice versa. Japanese workwear is a very big thing here. So if you ever find a piece of Japanese workwear, and I'll have a picture of what Japanese workwear looks like. If you ever find a piece like that, make sure you're listing that as Japanese workwear. workwear. But if you have Carhartt pieces, if you have stuff like that, if you have vintage Levi's, you want to make sure you're listing that as American workwear, and you want to make sure if you have international shipping available to you in whatever platform you're using, you want to make sure that you have that open, because I've sold a lot of Carhartt to Japan. So just make sure you keep that channel open because it is very much a trend there for them. But yeah, workwear is forever buy. It doesn't change in style. So very classic, very solid buys, and a forever style to be picking up. So workwear is going to lead us right into streetwear. So streetwear, if you want to break it down to like bare bones, it's kind of like where skate culture and hip hop culture with a little bit of workwear collide. But streetwear almost exclusively is brand driven. So while if we're talking about something like Coastal Grandmother, you can pick up a great pair of like khaki chinos, and that it doesn't matter the brand that it's from, as long as it has the look, it fits into Coastal Grandmother. That's not the case with streetwear. Streetwear is all about the brand. So you're going to be looking for brands like Supreme. If this is something you want to get into, I strongly recommend doing a little research into like how to tell fake Supreme, because Supreme is faked so much. You're looking for like Supreme, Kith, Rude, Carhartt, WIP, that stands for Carhartt Work in Progress. That's the streetwear branch of Carhartt. Fear of God / Fear of God Essentials, Off-White. There are just so many brands out there. The streetwear style pulls from a lot of different style inspirations. So you're just going to have to look at the piece that you have, but for the most part, streetwear is a lot of like loungewear, sweatpants, sweatshirts, jackets. So they also pull a lot from like the workwear aesthetic. That's where you get that perfect marriage of Carhartt Work in Progress, where you have these Carhartt, known qualities, and then you put that with a streetwear twist. So it's super high in demand. If you've ever found a Carhartt Work in Progress piece while you were out thrifting, let me know down below. I'm very interested to hear how many people have actually found it. I have yet to find one, but you just want to take a look at each piece and kind of be very descriptive about it. So if you want some inspiration in the streetwear world, so streetwear is a wormhole unto itself. So if you want to get a little bit of like inspiration in terms of like celebrities who are really like top of the game in streetwear, Pharrell, of course, Tyler, the Creator, who also happens to be the owner of Golf, which is another streetwear brand to be on the lookout for. But if you want to go down this wormhole, and the reason I would say if this is something that you want to get into, you really have to kind of commit to the learning of it, because there's a lot of like micro trends where like brands will be super popular and then they'll go away, or there's like an ebb and flow to it. So High Snobiety, I will link it down below. It's like High Snob IoT, Hypebeast. These are places that you can go to really learn what's hot in streetwear. You can learn all the different brands, because the thing is, like, yes, you have these major brands. You have Kith and you have Supreme and you have Off-White. These are brands that most people know. The fact is there are a million smaller brands that will fetch just as high a price as a Kith sweatshirt. So, if it's something you want to do, commit to the learning of it. Learn lots of the brands, learn what's in, learn what's out. You can get really deep into streetwear. Like, there are people that like flip streetwear, but you really have to know what you're doing to do it. If you look at like Supreme is notorious for having like lines outside of their store on release days. So they did, like, famously, they did this collaboration with Oreo, like Oreo cookies. And they were selling them for whatever it was, like $14 for a 3-pack of Supreme Oreo cookies. And they were being sold like later that day from people who were in that line, $45, $50. So that's a whole racket that people are involved in. And like, listen, there is money to be made there, but I would just warn you against diving into that. Despite the fact that there's a lot of money to be made, I would warn you against diving into that unless you really know what you're doing, because you gotta know what you're doing to make money flipping streetwear. Either way, it's a great aesthetic to buy from. Like I said, I just recommend learning a little bit about the brands you want to look for. Check out those outlets. Tons and tons and tons of information there. Next up here, we're going to talk the academias. So there are lots of sub-styles. You've got dark academia, you've got light academia, but the concept is kind of the same. It's more of like a tonality that separates the two. When you're thinking about like the academias, you want to think about literally academic institutions, right? You're sitting here, you're drinking your cup of coffee, you're next to an 8-foot stone fireplace, you're at one of the Yale colleges, that's dark academia. Think plaids, pleated skirts, blazers that look like hacking jackets, or blazers that look like they are school jackets. And if you're talking dark academia, that's going to be more dark colors. That's your forest greens, your blacks, your navy blues. Light academia is more your tans, your yellows, your browns, your creams. So it's just similar aesthetic, just different tonalities. You can use both keywords in most of the things you find. So for example, I've got this vintage Schumacher blazer, right? This is wool. It's a nice Glen plaid. This is, I think, Y2K, but this would fit into both dark academia and light academia because of the color, right? So it's brown. It's a little bit on the lighter side, but this could also be worn with like a black skirt and it would darken up the aesthetic. So this, I would use dark academia and light academia in the listing. But think tweeds, think houndstooth, think plaids, think wool, think really just old school fabrics, old school kind of styles. You want to use keywords like scholarly and vintage inspired because largely stuff like that is very much vintage inspired. Classic, formal, literary, preppy falls in there as well. You want to use all these keywords on dark academia and light academia pieces. I would say if you want some inspiration in this world, check out Wednesday. That's a great dark academia inspiration. You can check out like Cruel Intentions. That's a great like Y2K inspired academia aesthetic. Also great to watch for like old money aesthetic. That's very much same world right there. You can also watch like Rushmore, one of my favorite movies of all time. Any excuse to watch Rushmore again, I'll take it, but very much in that aesthetic. Also Gilmore Girls. Hello, Chilton, Yale, all academia. Next up, we are going to dip our toes into the world of like goth and alt clothing. Again, something that is definitely a style. It's not necessarily a micro trend, but the people who dress in the goth style or in the alternative style, this is very much a lifestyle. And the thing about this, the thing that's intriguing about this for us as resellers is that, and I talk about this a lot in my videos, there's just a limited pool of designers and companies that make clothing for this aesthetic. So it's something where the buyer pool is much, much smaller. There's also just like a much higher intent to buy because there's just less of it out there. When you are out shopping, if you see like fishnets, black lace, studs, those kind of details and materials that kind of lend themselves to that look. If you want to get a good idea of the brands you want to be looking for like a goth aesthetic, go and check out the Dolls Kill website. Dolls Kill's probably the biggest online seller of kind of alternative clothing brands. So they've got a ton of different brands. They've got some exclusive. They sell some, other brands that are sold in boutiques as well. But if you see what they have for sale, you're going to get a great idea of what the style is, what the different kind of trends are. Because there's like rave goth and then there's industrial. There's all different kinds of sub trends underneath the goth and alternative banner. So go and check out Dolls Kill. It's going to give you a great idea of what there is to sell there. You want to use all those keywords. You want to use dark aesthetic, you want to use goth, you want to use industrial, you want to use rave, you want to use witchy. Whimsy goth is another like kind of big sub trend in that world. But this is the kind of stuff that you will pick up and will sell very, very quickly as long as you keyword it right and get those right eyeballs on it. Because again, those people that are shopping for goth alternative clothing, they have just a limited pool of places to buy it and everybody loves a bargain. But either way, the goth and alternative is such a fast selling style in my closet personally, so definitely keep your eyes out for it. Don't be intimidated by it. You will often see things that look like they are destroyed garments and will be exactly as they were intended from Dolls Kill. So spend a little time on their website and see what is there and see what people are looking for, and I guarantee you'll find a few pieces while you are outsourcing. If you're looking for some inspiration in the goth style, check out like The Crow, The Lost Boys, The Craft. All of those movies have a great goth vibe to it, and it'll give you a good idea of what you're looking for in that style. So the next style we're going to talk about is the soft girl aesthetic. When you are thinking about the soft girl aesthetic, you are thinking like pastels, very girly. This is lightly inspired by Y2K, more on that in a minute. The clothes don't necessarily have to be a certain style, but it's more about like the color and tonality. This isn't necessarily a place where you would have a ton of saturated colors. So if you take like any silhouette style, whether you're looking at something that's more like Y2K inspired or something that's a little bit more like streetwear inspired, if you take any of that and make it like a halftone, take it from like a royal blue to a baby blue, now you're in the soft girl aesthetic. This is something that has a style for sure, and I'll give you a little bit of inspiration as to where to look to see like what the style really is. But really, this is a good one to add into anything you have of any other style that is in that pastel tone, because people will take that and like incorporate it into their individual unique style, whether it is like a 1990s button-down silk or again a Supreme hoodie. A Supreme hoodie can very well be part of a soft girl aesthetic. So if you're looking to get inspiration in this world, check out like the Virgin Suicides. In my mind, that is like the most soft girl aesthetic. It's very girly. It's all about like feminine and girlhood and all that kind of stuff. Cher from Clueless is very frequently dressed in like a soft girl aesthetic. You can also use soft boy aesthetic, and that's very much like your Timothée Chalamet, your Harry Styles. They very much dress in the soft boy aesthetic. You want to use that keyword for any like guys pieces that you find that fall into this aesthetic. But this is an interesting aesthetic that has kind of bubbled up in the past couple of years, and in my mind it's very much a chameleon, right? For me, that's very much a color story. Like the soft girl aesthetic is more a color story than an actual style of clothing, but it is something that people seek out. So make sure you have this on your radar and you're using those keywords: pastel, floral, girly, girl era. This also touches into like the preppy world, more on that in a minute. So just make sure that you have this on your radar and you're using those keywords, because they are something that people are looking for, and it's just one of those ways to get the right eyeballs on your items. Next up, now we're getting into my wheelhouse. Next up, we're going to talk about 90s aesthetic. So in my mind, you have like the two halves of the 90s. You have the beginning half of the 90s, which is more towards like the grunge style. Then you have the later half of the 90s, which gets more, you can see like the progression into the Y2K style. More on that in a minute. When you're thinking about like things for the 90s aesthetic, you're thinking like flannel, vintage band tees. And let me know if you are able to get vintage band tees at your thrift store, because there are people who resell specifically that, and they are absolutely on top of stuff at the thrift. So let me know if you've ever been able to find like a 1992 Metallica concert tee. I'm very interested. I never get my hands on them, but I know some of you out there do. But think like daisies and sunflowers and like burnout velvet and baby doll dresses and Doc Martens. Of course, you want to make sure you're checking out like Calvin Klein jeans. Calvin Klein jeans were the jeans in the 90s. Vintage Calvin Klein jeans and silver tab, specifically silver tab Levi's, because they were big in the 90s. Also, I can't even believe I'm saying this, Janko jeans. If you can get your hands on a pair, or if you have a pair stuffed in the back of your closet, or if your kid used to wear Janko jeans and you still have, guys, sell them. They're going for north of $100 today. If you have vintage Jankos and you don't plan on wearing them, now is the time to sell them. Right now. Not 3 months from now. Right now. Get them listed. So if you want a little bit of inspiration in the 90s world, obviously like Reality Bites is the early 90s movie. Obviously, Drew Barrymore, 90s style icon. When I think about the 90s, when I think about like what I saw on repeat in front of my eyes, it was always Drew Barrymore. Sunflowers, thin eyebrows, like she was it. She was the it girl of the 90s. And Empire Records, another one of those great like time capsule movies. I feel like Empire Records is the movie with the aesthetic that kind of moves us from the early 90s into the late 90s. It has a little bit of the flavor of both. But anyway, all three things, great for inspiration for 90s pieces. One of my favorite styles to pick up, probably because this was the era that I became like aware of fashion. It's my favorite. So what comes after the 90s? Y2K. It is wild to me that Y2K is such a thing right now, but it is super high in demand. Like, you're looking for like flare low-rise jeans, lots of like pleather, shiny fabrics, like glitter graphics on t-shirts, velour tracksuits, think Juicy Couture. That is very much Y2K aesthetic. And when you're keywording these things, you want to use things like bright and preppy. Again, more on preppy in a minute. That's a whole topic unto itself. Nostalgic. You want to use the term going out tops. Like that is something that if you are around my age, you are very familiar with the whole conversation that goes, what are you wearing tonight? Jeans and a going out shirt. That's literally how we phrased it. So going out shirts are a thing, to the point where certain stores actually have a category on their website, like current website today, for going out shirts. You're looking for inspiration for Y2K fashion. You're looking at Paris Hilton. You're looking at Britney Spears. You're looking at Mean Girls. This is all in that early Y2K era. And you can use Y2K. It doesn't necessarily have to be Y2K vintage. Of course, if you put that it is Y2K vintage, it should be Y2K vintage. But there's a lot of stuff being made today in that Y2K aesthetic. You want to use that on those pieces as well. But again, use that inspiration for the kind of pieces that you're looking for the kind of pieces that you should be using Y2K as a keyword for. So again, you're using that shiny, preppy was a big thing in the early 2000s. Again, more on that in a minute. Going out top, bling, that's when bling started to become a thing. So these are all keywords that you can use for your Y2K pieces, obviously depending on which piece you find, but lots of like iridescent, shimmer. When you think about Y2K came right after like the millennium, and there was so much talk of like this being like the transition to the future. So there was a lot of futuristic inspiration in this era. So that's going to lead us into Preppy. And Preppy's an interesting thing because Preppy has had like, in my lifetime, in my personal lifetime, it's had like 3 different movements. And this version of Preppy, the current version of Preppy, is very, very different. But the fact of the matter is, you're going to use these keywords for like all of the different pieces because, you know, somebody like me that's looking for a Preppy piece, like I'm going to type in like Preppy jacket and I'm going to want to see crested blazers. Like that's, if I'm looking for something Preppy, that's what I'm looking for. So you're going to use these keywords for both the current version of Preppy and the older version of Preppy. Prior to the last 4 years, Preppy is polo shirts, cable knit sweaters, Ralph Lauren, navy blue, red, white. You think classic Americana, think old money, think nautical. That's what Preppy was up until very recently. Preppy has a new connotation in bright colors. Think like checkerboard. The checkerboard print that was everywhere for the last couple years, that's considered Preppy today. So use those keywords in these bright colored pieces, but also use them for when you find those Ralph Lauren pieces, when you find those vintage Preppy pieces. You're going to want to use keywords like classic and collegiate and Ivy League and bright. Either way, this is a little bit of a chameleon trend, and it's just, again, it's got a lot of different meanings at once. And like simultaneously, it's got different meanings to different people, right? Like somebody like me is going to think about Preppy and I'm going to think about my Preppy, like from the Y2K era or the 80s. And somebody who is 16 years old, when they think about Preppy, they're thinking about, you know, the checkerboard Sherpa jacket that everybody had last year. So use the keywords, get the right eyeballs to them, and in 10 years, we're going to get another version of Preppy. So can't wait to see what that is. And finally, we're going to end on kind of a combo aesthetic that I think a lot of people think are very, very similar. While they do have some similar features, there's also a lot that sets them apart. And that is Coet and Lolita. Whereas Coet is like a style aesthetic, Lolita is very much like a lifestyle. Now, there's a lot of style notes that align between the two of them. But again, in reality, what is considered like a Lolita style is pretty different from what would be considered Coet. Although I would use the keywords for both because this is more of an educational thing because a lot of people in this world use those terms interchangeably, despite the fact that like factually they are different. A lot of people use them interchangeably, but I'm going to tell you the difference. When you think about like a Coet style, it's very girly, it's pastel, it's pink, it's purple, and the same goes for Lolita. But Lolita in particular is a subculture coming out of Japan. Specifically, Lolita styles are very vintage inspired, specifically like Victorian inspired, with these kind of cotton candy colors. And the pieces that somebody who lives the Lolita lifestyle wears are generally like specifically made to be a Lolita dress. So if you take a look at the website Angelic Pretty, this is a website where you can go and buy Lolita dresses, you will see an example of what these pieces are. Now, a lot of the accessories, there's a lot of crossover, but in terms of a Lolita style, it is a very specific thing that you are describing. When you are talking Coet, you're thinking more like kind of 1960s bombshell inspired, very girly, very feminine. Again, lots of pinks, lots of pastels. Again, there's a lot of crossover. Think bows, pearls. This is all very much in that like kind of Coet, girly aesthetic. You're going to use girly, girl era, bows, lace. These are all great keywords for Coet. Coquette for Lolita. Again, if you just put those two keywords in, Coquette and Lolita, to any of the pieces that kind of fit into these two styles, you'll get the right eyeballs on them. If you're looking for a little bit of inspiration for Coquette, this is like Sabrina Carpenter is like the human embodiment of Coquette style today. You can also, again, look back on like the Virgin Suicides. That's still, again, that soft girl that's very Coquette. You're thinking of like Dusty Springfield, one of my all-time favorites, Valley of the Dolls. Do I have a first edition of Valley of the Dolls? You bet I do. Think like the fembots in Austin Powers. That's all in that Coquette aesthetic. Lolita, again, is going to be that Japanese subculture. Use those words interchangeably. Just know the difference, but use the words interchangeably, because I think a lot of the world is using those styles interchangeably, despite the fact that they're very different in a lot of people's heads. But that is it, guys. Thank you so much for sitting and listening. Hopefully this is a little bit helpful. I hope the visuals were helpful, and I hope some of the inspiration will get you to go and watch some great movies and give you a little inspiration as to like what to look for while you're outsourcing. Let me know what styles you like to pick up. Let me know what styles you like to wear. Let us know down in the comments below. I'm super interested to hear, do you have a specific style that you specialize in? This is by no means an exhaustive list. Like, fashion and trends are like endless. So we can go on for 75 hours and still not hit every trend and micro trend that's happening in the world today. But for now, I think this is a pretty good list to get started. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope it was helpful. If you did enjoy it, please consider leaving a like or a comment on this video. If there are any other videos like this that you would like to see, let me know down below. I would love to make those for you. But guys, without further ado, have the most beautiful week. Happy hunting, and I will see you all in